Welcome to the Writer's Way podcast, where we celebrate writers who have completed their books and inspire writers who haven't. Join Lori and her guests as they talk about writing, books, and life in between chapters.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Writer's Way podcast. I'm here with Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for coming on with me.
Hi, thanks, Lori, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You're here on a really exciting day because this won't air today, but today is the first day of your Kickstarter campaign for your second book.
My first Kickstarter, second book. So the Kickstarter is very new to me. I self-funded the first one, which I was happy to do, but yeah, so I thought I would try Kickstarter and see how that worked out for me.
And so you're taking time out today on a day that you're probably feeling stressed and nervous. And
I am. You know what? That's the welcome to my life. That's the story of my life these days. I just have this overall feeling of anxiety and stress. So I'll make it through. But thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. So why don't you share with some people, the people, your background? Like, are you one of these people who has always been a writer? Do you have journals full of writing, or was it more inspired by a certain life event?
It definitely was more inspired by a certain life event. I would say my background, I do have a background in marketing and working with a creative team. So just being a more creative person, I would say, that's kind of my area. I'm definitely a more creative versus being scientific. So I wouldn't say, or being an analyzer. So I wouldn't say that this is a huge stretch for me. But because I always, I have the marketing background and I like I said, I'm more creative. The life event, I did have triplets a few years ago, and a special needs son who ultimately he ended up, after a series of illnesses, ended up passing away in 2016. And today, May 2nd, is the third anniversary of his death. So I'm actually happy that I have things to focus on today. But he was special needs. He had cerebral palsy and some other medical challenges, medical things, and so was very sick, passed away. And so we started a foundation, which is one of the things that we did, the Ben Smiles Memorial Foundation, but then I also wanted to create the children's book with my character in a wheelchair. So my son's name was Benjamin. We have Ben Smiles Foundation, and then Ben's Adventures is the name of my book. And so the concept of my book is that it's about a little boy in a wheelchair, and he loves life and has friends and has adventures. It shows everyone that you can have joy even though you have challenges. So that was the premise of my book. And so I just came up with the idea one day, and I thought, darn it, let's just do a children's book.
Let's just do it. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
What a beautiful tribute.
Thank you.
I just think that's lovely. And I'm just going to move on because otherwise it'll be a ball
I know.
fest.
I don't want to, be a puddle over here. So
yeah, you especially. Okay, so I'll keep it together for both of us. I won't, but so you had the idea. All of a sudden, I'm going to write a bed book. And how long did it take you? Would you say?
I started thinking about it, let's see, because the first one published in May of last year, so May 2018. And so I first started working on it, writing on it, I would say like August, September of 2017. And so for the first, I probably, wrote it 2 or 3 months or so. And then I actually, for the first book, ended up working with a hybrid publisher to help with some of the creative. So they helped me along, kind of that publishing path. I've since broken with them. I'm fully, a full indie author for the second book. But they, I was grateful to have them just to kind of lead me through, lead me down that first path, since I didn't really know, how to proceed and, what was involved and that type of thing. So certainly today I feel more educated and feel more experienced, in the children's book world.
Can you just explain what a hybrid publisher is and what they do? Because a lot of people listening, are not at that point yet.
Right. So a hybrid publisher, they basically, you pay for creative. I mean, I think of it as, they're a creative agency, and I paid for creative. They have a contract. I actually was not under the publishing portion of the contract. I was just under the creative development. So they basically, I provide the idea, provide the story, I pay them a creative fee. Basically, you're buying a book. I mean, similar as an indie author, you're going to pay an editor, you're going to pay the illustrator, the book designer. Working with the hybrid publisher in my experience was, I buy the creative, they help edit it, they provide the illustrator, they put it together, they send it off to the printer.
So do you have?
So it's similar in my experience. It was similar to being, an indie author, except now I had to find the separate editor. I had to find the separate illustrator, so instead of them handling kind of the whole creative piece of it, now since I am fully on my own, you have to do all of the steps.
All the
so it's a lot of work for sure.
So it was a positive experience for you working with them?
It was. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints. I mean, I did decide last summer to separate from them. Just some communication and service issues, and I thought, well, I could probably just do this completely on my own. So, I mean, there are some benefits for being, in control of everything.
For sure.
Which is why I decided to separate. But just, from the creative aspect of it, it was very similar, to just working with an illustrator and that type of thing.
Gotcha. And they took care of some of the stuff that a lot of writers don't really want to or don't feel capable of when they're starting out.
Right.
Because there's a lot that goes into it. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Okay, so so now the second book. So the first one got published. It was a little bit less than a year.
Yep.
And then did you always want it to be a series?
I did, yeah. And I when I started thinking about it, I probably listed out about 10 different scenarios or adventures that Ben can go on. And they're all experiences all adventures based on our own, experiences as a family. So, because I wanted it to be about kind of his life, not just made up stories, which I might get to the made up stories, once I run out of content or run out of things for our own life. But, so the first book was about a dream of, him going to the beach. And so I'm a beach girl. I grew up on the East Coast. We always took family vacations to the beach. And so my kids, and I live outside of Chicago, so it's not an easy trek now to get to the beach, but my kids, even Ben, he died when he was 3, but he still had two different vacations to the beach. So for me, kind of that was a locale that, was important for me and we had experience with. And, there's a scene in that book where the kids are flying kites. My husband loves to fly kites and they pick up seashells and you kind of do all of those, beachy things that kids and families like to do. So, I mean, the first book was definitely inspired by, our experiences. And then the second book is Ben, two things. So he was able to be in preschool for a year. And so I really and he had a phenomenal experience. I mean, he was in an early childhood program and he had an IEP and, individualized education plan. Yeah. And he had therapy in school and he had a really strong team that just fully loved him and did everything they could for him. And so I really wanted to honor his experience in school. And so I'm dedicating this book. And so, but the scenario for the book is, he's at school with his triplet brother and sister, and then, he had so much fun. He loves his class. He loves all of his friends. He loves his teacher. It's so much fun. He envisions it's a circus. And so, he kind of, imagines it's, a day at the circus. And so, and again, the circus, my husband, loved the circus and loved to take the kids to the circus. So I'm kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone here with the honoring, my son's educational team and then also,
That's cool.
Like the circus. So I know my husband, when Ringling Brothers went under, my husband was pretty sad about that. We replaced it with Disney on Ice. So now
well, there you go.
We have a kind of an annual Disney on Ice event.
Oh, that's so cute that he likes that so much. Mm-hmm. So in your experience, there can't be that many books out there about kids in wheelchairs yet. Like, is there?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you might come across a couple, but certainly not, in the mainstream of just kids books that, you tend to see are the popular authors, really well-known authors. I think you see it more and more. Or you're starting to see it more and more, just the idea of inclusion and diversity and showing all types of kids and all types of people in children's books. I mean, that's so important. And so, whether it's skin color or abilities or kids in wheelchairs or, You know, I saw, I was in Walmart the other day and saw a doll with an amputee, had a prosthetic leg, and I thought, wow, they're doing dolls now. You're like, but it's great that they're representing, all types of kids and all types of disabilities or abilities, can be represented, because I think that's important.
I think that's so important, and that's so great that you've provided that resource. So other parents looking for, I want a book with a child like mine, now they're going to have a whole series of them.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So that's part of it. And I also think it's important for kids that are, typical kids that don't have disability, or they aren't familiar with kids in wheelchairs. Maybe it becomes less scary, or, they start to, if they see the visible disability more, then they're more familiar with it and less scared of it. Yeah. So I think, I think obviously like the niche market or the niche audience would be, families with special needs. My hope is, that type of book can be accepted because I think that's just as important.
Oh, absolutely. Like every teacher could use one in their classroom.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
The preschool teacher, the second book.
Yeah. And in the school events, I've done, I don't want to say tons, but I've done quite a few school events, and I've had typical kids, raising their hand and saying, oh, my cousin has epilepsy, or, oh, I know somebody in a wheelchair at church, or, so I think they're beginning, kids are making the connection that,
it's okay.
There's people. I mean, there's people. They might have different abilities, but that doesn't mean, they can't be a friend, or they can't play, or, whatever. And that was my goal with the book.
Fantastic. That sounds like an excellent resource. So you started the Kickstarter today. Do we have any illustrations already for the second book, or?
We do. Yeah, it's currently being illustrated. I think the cover is done. She's worked through a few of the spreads. It's not fully done yet, but there are, I've shared some images and graphics on my Facebook page, and it's on the Kickstarter. I've done a couple of videos, tease, what the interior of the book is. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, she's done a really phenomenal job so far.
Yeah. And when are you expecting it will be out?
The end of May. Well, okay, so printed, I think the book will be done by the end of May. So my hope is that by the time the Kickstarter wraps up on June 1st, that, I'll be able to share the ebook with folks, because that was one of the, every backer gets gets the complimentary ebook. So hopefully I'll be able to share the ebook. Now, with the book printing and all of that, I think it'll be, August before I'm able to actually ship books.
Right.
The printing and everything, that takes a little bit of time
Yeah.
to get everything together. So my hope is, end of July, early August, I'll be able to ship the books out.
Okay. And how did you find your illustrator? Because the first time around, the publisher found it. So this time.
He did, yeah. And, what's interesting is that I already had the developed character, and with the publisher, with their illustrator, I went back and forth because it was based on my kid, so I really wanted to love the illustrations, and I wanted them to capture kind of his personality and his joy and his smile and his round face and his curly hair. There are some things I really wanted the illustration to capture, so I really pushed them. And we spent quite a bit of time with it, on it last year with the publisher. So going into this, and since I broke with them, I no longer had access to the original illustrator. But I knew I wanted to maintain consistency and, have the character be the Ben character that, we had worked so hard on. And so one of the things that I asked folks to do, I explained the situation to them. And said, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind just replicating or doing a quick sketch of Ben, just so you can, I can see that you can do it, and, you can kind of match, their style. And I had a couple of people that said, no, I don't want to do a free sketch. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's not really what I'm looking for, but whatever. And so, but I probably had 4 or 5 illustrators that did. And, a couple were not quite the Ben, that I wanted, and a couple really were. And so I actually found her. I reached out to illustrators. I started following them on Instagram, and a lot of the Facebook author groups that we're in. Yeah. I just started following pages and commenting, and Instagram. Instagram is great because the illustrators are constantly posting their different, whatever their styles are, the different things they're working on, all their work in progress. And so for any author that's starting the process, I would say if you don't have your illustrator yet, follow the hashtag KidLitIllustrator. or children's illustrator or picture book illustrator, anything illustrator, and then, try to find, someone that, you like their style, or maybe they have a variety of different things, and they're not stuck to one style. But I thought that was pretty helpful. I mean, you could get lost in Instagram just going through everything. I mean, there's so much. So
I covet them all. I'm like, how many books can I write at once just so I can use them?
Right.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
So
I would say if someone is first starting to search for an illustrator, start with Instagram is kind of my first piece of advice. Just click around and see who you like.
You found yours on Instagram this time?
Oh, no, she was actually, I may have. I follow her on Instagram. I may have reached out to her in one of the groups.
Okay. And then
yeah, and you can click on websites. They all have websites and web portfolios and, but I probably researched. I probably just clicked through without even, contacting anyone yet for a good 2 to 3 weeks. Just, and I have in Excel, I started a list of, names and websites and who did I like and that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so how long did the process take this time? So the book's almost at completion as far as the creation of it. So was it faster than the last time?
I would say probably about the same time frame, because last year it did publish beginning of May. Actually went with the publisher to Book Expo last year is when it officially released. So that was a fun experience. But I would say, and I spent time this go around writing, and I worked with a couple of different editors, because I wanted to write more in rhyme and verse, which is very, very much a challenge. So I spent a lot of time doing that. Going back and forth with an editor, with a poetry coach, and just trying to get everything, just so. So I spent a lot of time on the writing piece of it, a fair amount of time finding the illustrator, interviewing, chatting with people on the phone, that type of thing. And so.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
where did you find a poetry coach? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, okay, I've been calling her a poetry coach, but an editor with, expert level poetry knowledge.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, I've been referring to it as a poetry coach.
Yeah.
But I'm a children's book editor, with some poetry experience.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry, my dog was.
I thought it was a kid.
No, I've got dogs. I've got puppies. I have one 10-month. Oh, my dogs. I have a 10-month-old and a 5-month-old.
Oh.
One likes to scratch at the door, so I just threw something at him.
Yeah. Rather than
Come here. No.
You can let them out if you want, because we can.
I don't want. Okay, 1 second.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about bumps along the way. Has there been any big bumps that you want to share, sort of how you handled them?
I don't know. I mean, this go around, where I'm controlling everything and handling the process myself. I don't know that I've had any major bumps. I mean, my one major bump last year was probably, deciding I needed to leave my publisher. Because I didn't, once the creative was done and once, the book was done and the book was at the printer, I kind of felt like you're all of a sudden not their priority, because it's like the creative is where they're making their money. They're making $1 or $2 on the royalty side of things. And so it's like once, you pay the creative contract and the book is done, there's less incentive for them to really, kind of promote your books from publisher standpoint. So I went back and forth with them for a couple of months and I just thought, well, forget this. Like I would rather do it all myself versus be mad at, somebody else that I don't feel like I'm getting the service that, so I think where you hear a lot of opinions or, discussions just about the hybrid publishing model, I think I can absolutely see that. But I think from my experience, I decided to leave before I felt like this is a bad relationship, because I could kind of see it going in that direction. So I personally say I like to approach it as I bought their creative. I bought a book, and as an indie author, you're going to buy a book from somewhere. I mean, unless you're an artist yourself, you're going to pay an illustrator to do it. You're going to pay an editor, whatever it is. And so, Yes, I would say, to answer your question, I would say, you know, leaving them and then really having to start from square one with Amazon and, I had to buy the ISBN. I mean, there's some things that I hadn't really, you have to kind of figure out because they had handled everything.
Right. So a big learning curve, but maybe not necessarily bumpy, but just like.
Right. More of a learning curve, like kind of a, process, and any momentum kind of stopped for a second because I had to, I had to find a printer to print my own books because, again, another complaint I had with them was I had to use their printer, which was incredibly expensive. So I thought, well, in my marketing background, I know I can get a cheaper rate from another printer. And so,
where are you printing from this time?
What's that?
Where are you printing from this time?
When I had to do a reprint last year, I used Bang Printing in Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
So I have not officially jumped over to the China market. I know a lot of authors do. But no, I was happy with the quality of Bang, and their pricing seemed reasonable.
Yeah. And I like that they will warehouse it for you if you get a lot.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay the shipping costs, which is a lot.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't talked too much on the podcast about sort of that option because I myself find it so overwhelming. It's one thing when you print on demand, and you just sit back and you watch, and yes, it sells sometimes and yes, it doesn't, but that's what your concern is. Your concern isn't shipping and warehousing and and duties.
Yeah. Well, and I still, I'm not printing thousands and thousands at a time like some of the other authors are. So my warehouse right now is my dining room. So luckily, we don't, I mean, who uses a dining room anymore, right?
So how many do you print about at a time?
Well, I printed 1,500.
Oh, okay. That's a good amount of.
Yeah, that's a good amount. It was like 56 boxes or something like that. I don't know. So it was a pallet and a half or so. But I carried them one by one into my dining room, into the corner. They fit nicely and they store. It's climate controlled, so I don't have to worry about.
So then, are you going to the post office quite regularly?
I do, yeah. So Amazon, they send purchase orders every Monday. So typically Monday or Tuesday, I'll box stuff up and make a trip to the post office.
Yeah.
But again, with the volume that I'm doing, I'm not sending thousands at a time. Maybe a couple hundred at a time here and there.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
For anybody watching, if that's the route that you're going, you want to use the Amazon Advantage platform. So I think it's Amazon or advantage.amazon.com. I've talked to some people lately who have gone through Seller Central or Vendor Central, and that's not set up for booksellers. You don't want to do that. You want to do KDP or Advantage.
Exactly. Yep.
So any wise words of wisdom that you have learned along the way that you would like to share with somebody, maybe just starting out?
I would say if it's a dream to have a children's book, do it. I mean, anybody there, you're capable of it. Figure it out. There's a wealth of knowledge online. There's tons of different, groups, Facebook groups, Instagram resources. I joined Twitter. That one, I don't personally think Twitter is incredibly useful, but that was one of the things that was suggested to me is I need to have some interaction on Twitter. So I don't know. Poorly. I think I have about 600 followers.
That seems like a lot.
Well, but it's kind of discouraging because like one day I might have 600, 104, and then I go and log in and I have 599, and I thought, I haven't even said anything. How did I lose 6 followers? Like what? So I'm not at the numbers where, it matters if you lose a handful here or there, because I notice if I lose 1 follower, I notice.
Oh, well, from what I understand, in the next 6 weeks, Facebook is rolling out some big changes. And of course, they own Instagram, and they're going to put a lot less emphasis on followers.
Okay.
And likes. So you don't have to worry about that anymore.
That would be good. Yeah, I saw I bookmarked an article. I saw something yesterday. I haven't read it though, but I think it's what you're talking about, the Facebook changes they have coming out. So
yeah, they're rolling out some big changes. Okay, so let's just talk briefly about your Kickstarter because this podcast will air about the middle, I think, of your Kickstarter. So where can people find you and what are their options to help you make this book a reality?
So, well, it's on Kickstarter. So if you go to Kickstarter, it's just search for Ben's Adventures, or search under my name, Elizabeth Gerlach, and it should pop up. It's the only one I have. I do have a couple of early bird packages going on that expire on Saturday, which obviously wouldn't make sense to since we're airing in 2 weeks. So, I have a couple of different options. There's a teacher packet option that includes like a tote bag and a set of classroom books and PDFs of activity packets and bookmarks and posters and those types of things.
Oh.
There's a buy three, get one option. If you want to get the new book plus my old last year's beach book, there's an option to kind of mix and match the book.
Oh, that sounds great.
An option to donate. So if you don't have anybody with kids, picture book age kids, but still want to support, I would be most appreciative of that. You can always do that. And I'm donating books to Easter Seals, which is where my son Benjamin received a lot of his therapy services. So physical therapy, occupational feeding therapy, speech therapy, all of that. We're through Easter Seals here, and obviously they're well known. But in the Fox River Valley here where I live. So I've not made a deal, but I've offered to donate books to them for all pre-ordered books that are donated or that are purchased during the Kickstarter in the month of May. So for every 10 that are pre-ordered, I'm going to donate one to them.
Oh, that's lovely.
Incentive for people to buy a book and know that it's going to a good cause. Or I can also, there's an option to just make a donation. And if you wanted me to donate books to your church or your school, or if you had something specific, I'd be more than happy to do that as well.
Oh, so lots of options for people. They can support you in however works for them.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. And do you have a website, or are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, Ben's Adventures book, on Facebook. And then for Ben Smiles Memorial Foundation, I have a Facebook page for them. Or for that as well, bensmiles.org is the website.
Okay.
Or bens-adventures.com.
Okay, awesome. So I will include all those links so that people can find you in whatever way is best for them.
And elizabethgerlach.com. I have too many. I'm all over the place. Too many sites and too many pages to keep track of.
Hard to keep.
And I'm on Instagram, so we all have pages on Instagram as well. So.
Okay, I'll share all those links. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking to me, especially on this busy day.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Right, bye. Bye, thanks.
You've been listening to the Writer's Way podcast. For show notes, links to guests' information, and to learn more about the Writer's Way, check out LoriWriter.com. Until next week, enjoy this chapter of your life.